The UCLA job is open. Deshaun Foster, an alum there. Appreciate the heck out of him if you're a UCLA fan for what he was as a player. As a coach, didn't really go how I think we all hoped it would go. Now that job is open. Similar to Virginia Tech. The prerequisites for them, how it sounds right now at least, are a head coach with experience. So again, first choice is not P4 coordinator. If it comes to that, wouldn't shock me. The discussion around them is different than Virginia Tech. Pete Nakos went on Andy Inari's show, I believe it was today. It was today or maybe it's coming up here. But he made a lot of really good points with how people are assessing the UCLA job if you're a prospective candidate. One of the top questions is, okay, it's UCLA, not necessarily like known for being a quote-unquote football school. Not they haven't had good teams in the past. There's Troy Aikman, there's Brett Hundley. There's some good teams that have come through UCLA, but you don't think UCLA college football right away. So the question for some candidates is, okay, like is there going to be the support behind us to go do what we want to do, similar to Virginia Tech? But something to note here, new chancellor, Julio Frank, was at Miami when they got Mario Cristobal. So if Julio Frank is calling the shots, and it sounds like he's going to have a pretty large hand in calling the shots, being the chancellor at UCLA, he cares about football. So you have that, plus you have Casey Wasserman, who's pretty involved in putting together the Olympics in LA, one of the most massive donors for UCLA, also going to be involved here. So there should be some backing, and there's a person that cares about football that's in charge at UCLA. Does that all translate how we want it to translate? I'm going to throw a name out here at Chicato, and I want to get your take on this, and I also want to get your names that you're interested in here. If we're sticking to the script of has to be a head coach currently, or a head coach caliber player person who's coached across the block and not going to be a first-time head coach, Jeff Monken at Army to me is super intriguing because even if there is some backing for UCLA when it comes to building the roster, I don't know that UCLA is ever going to out-recruit an Ohio State, a Penn State, heck, even a Michigan, how they're swinging their bat right now. If you expect UCLA to be, let's just assume they expect them to be a team that competes for Big Ten championships, I think you got to do something different. So outside of hiring someone else that's going to be a more ace recruiter and put more money into recruiting, get somebody who can maybe not just live with the triple option 100%, but have triple option-ish tendencies that's supposed to make up for roster disparity. Jeff Monken at Army, I think that makes a lot of sense, personally. Your thoughts on the UCLA job, take that wherever you want to go. If you want to talk about Jeff Monken or the UCLA job or whatever, just like give me your thoughts on UCLA because this job now is wide open spaces.
Yeah, I think that this one's very interesting, and I think the right questions are being asked as far as the care factor at UCLA. Do they care about football? The vibes are very grim in the Rose Bowl for their home games, and it's a valid question. I think them also wanting an experienced head coach is extremely valid. Now, if Will Stein's like, I want to come to UCLA, I don't think they're going to turn their nose up at that. Mm-mm. But why would Will Stein want to go there? He whoops up on UCLA defenses and their counterparts every year, so I don't think that's going to be something he's going to want to do within the conference. The Monken one, I don't know. I feel like UCLA is enough of a brand nationally and has enough history across all of their sports to where I think hiring a triple option military coach is kind of punting on that. Like, I think it's like, hey, we don't care that we have no one in the stands. Yeah. We don't care that we have to travel across the nation. We're going to bring our lunch pail and just run the triple option. I don't know about that. I don't know if that'd be my favorite hire or my top hire because I just think, again, like that would be punting on doing things the traditional route that you think there is a level of success you can attain there. That's just a complete opposite of a Chip Kelly high-octane offense that was able to win a lot of games there when he was at UCLA. It just wasn't as popular of a destination of a thing to do in California on a Saturday in Los Angeles. So I think there is, like I mentioned with Virginia Tech, you have to call John Gruden because I think, again, this is someone that could bring some excitement to Los Angeles in this program that would not exist without him and does not exist without him. I think with his connections, him being LA, he could make this a cool brand, a cool place to be, and that's just something that they desperately need. We'll see what they do between the white lines, and his experience as a college coach versus an NFL coach is obviously something that's there. But I think too cool of a name, too big of a name not to bring in and spin the tires on personally. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Yeah. I think there's another guy you have to call, though. Might be a far reach here, but do you just give David Shaw a call? Hey, man, like you're a program builder on the West Coast, and we are down tremendously. We will throw you the kitchen sink, like whatever it takes. Please help us. You know what it looks like. You know what it looks like to be a power in California. Can you get us right? I think you have to call David Shaw. and just see what he says. I think he's currently an assistant or an analyst in the NFL for the Lions right now. But to me, like, they need such a hard reset that instead of like going down a Monken like triple option military style path, I think you have to spin the tires on doing it a way that many people have done it in the past. And I think that there's potential there if you can get a guy somehow. I mean, if you could get a guy like David Shaw, that's an absolute slam dunk to me.
Interesting.
And I think that's someone, I have other candidates, but I think as far as a must call, you must call Gruden. I think you must call David Shaw to try to fix this thing.
That's super interesting. The David Shaw, it's funny because the Gruden is almost like the activator, Will Ferrell kicking and screaming route of, okay, I'm going to bring the juice, the visibility. We're going to hire Mike Ditka underneath me and make sure that we have everything from an X's and O's perspective aligned.
Give it to the Italians.
Go from there. Get past the Italians. Exactly right. Alana, meat comes first. That's kind of the whole deal there. But with David Shaw, it's almost that other train of thought of, okay, we're going to be tougher than you. We're going to be better in the margins than you. And that's going to be how we get down. I'm curious because those two paths to me, the thought I have is how much support do we have to go get really good players? Because if we can go get really good players, Gruden, let's make it happen, baby. And you go get in the living room and we'll get a great staff and we'll roll. If we're not getting the best players, we'll go like Stanford did with David Shaw and we'll kind of build just a team that's going to make your life suck for 4 quarters, and that's going to be how we get down. Because for UCLA, Cato, I think there still is a lot that you can sell. You know, like UCLA, the campus is incredible. It's an incredible location being in Westwood. The degree itself is awesome. You're still in the Big Ten, which are you one of the bottom feeders, if not the bottom feeder in the Big Ten this season? Yeah, but you get to tell NFL scouts, hey, watch my tape. I did this against Ohio State, Oregon, so on and so forth when it comes to your aspirations to play past college. So that plus like the recruiting territory there is for a head coach. Same thing we said for the DMV. I'm a little biased having played my high school football in Southern California. I think there's enough there to where if you were able to take a large enough percentage of the in-state talent at the top level, you could be able to be a bowl team plus going forward, just with that talent alone, in my opinion. We'll see if that ends up being the case. One name I'm curious about, Cato, to stick with the idea of like we have support to go get players. Dan Lynn, the USC defensive coordinator, was previously at UCLA as the coordinator. I like the fact that he knows the area. I like the fact he has relationships there. I like the fact that he has ties to UCLA at that level. He could be the guy where, hey, if we have backing to go grab the top-end talent, he's a guy to go activate that. And I think he'd also be a guy that could go put a staff together to maximize what they would then have on that roster. Yeah,
I don't mind it. He definitely is familiar with UCLA, familiar with that area, and that's the big thing. You hit it right on the head. It's in California. Like if you had to choose states to coach within, like, and you can only have the pipeline of high school talent, California, Texas, Georgia, like these are places where it's all in everything you need is in your backyard. You just got to go get it. And I think finding a coach that can chip away at whatever USC is keeping in state, like that's half the battle right there. And D'Anton Lynn would quite literally have the playbook for that. JD, there's another name on here I have, but there's one that I think is just an interesting, fun pick.
I love it.
Let's just see how UNLV ends the season. Like, what do they look like this year, and how interested would a one Dan Mullen be coming into UCLA? He's clearly experienced his, again, like I've said with Virginia Tech, knows what it's supposed to look like and what it's not supposed to look like, has coached at the highest level in the SEC, is now wandering to the West Coast. Can we bring him if they say they win a conference title, say they have a good year this year and he proves he can make it happen on the West Coast? Does he go a little bit over to the far West Coast, and could he reactivate and bring some juice to UCLA as a guy who has proven he could do it at a high level, can definitely recruit, is now proving his ways and what he can do on the West Coast? I think that'd be a really interesting hire too, and again, another one with experience, because no offense to Deshaun Foster.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're trying to bring in someone who's trying to figure this out on the fly. And I think Dan Mullen has the head coaching thing figured out. And I think he'd also be a candidate I'd be interested in, maybe give a call to.
And what you just mentioned with Dan Mullen, the expectations for him at UCLA, I don't think are at the same level of the other teams in the Big Ten that are competing for conference championships. And so for Dan Mullen, he was so successful at Mississippi State because he's like, I don't really want to go recruit with Georgia and Bama. And that's why he got in trouble at Florida for the most part, because it was like, I don't really want to go recruit with those top tier. I can't recruit with those top tier programs here. So so on. Maybe can't's a strong word, but wouldn't recruit with those guys. So at UCLA, it's kind of the same story of like, we're not asking to go out recruit Ohio State. Just go put a team together on the field that can compete with, the teams in the Big Ten you're supposed to compete with and what level we expect you to. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. Makes a lot of sense.
He has the blueprint. I think they're just going to try to do something different than what they had last time. And I think that you can justify it just given the position they're in.
Yeah.
Like, you can bring in a popular forward-facing activator that can bring excitement around UCLA that doesn't exist. You can bring in a guy that has shown he can, through just experience, has a great track record, bring that kind of guy in. There are different kinds of head coach archetypes, kind of like to think about the dynasty mode of the college football video game. There's recruiters, there's guys who are schematically just proficient. Like, they're going to try to just do something different than what they've got going on right now. And I think you can justify all of them. It's just a matter of what kind of style they want to go with, and ultimately who says yes at the top of their list.
And that's the thing. If I am, and Andy and Ari mentioned this in their segment, so I don't want to take their thought, but I think it's a good point, so I want to make sure we say it on our show as well. If I am a Power 4 coordinator, up-and-comer, a Will Stein, for example, if he wants to take it, more power to you. But what you said, like, why would you take that job to be your first head coaching job, is a bit of a head-scratcher because we're still not sure how much support do we have. You're not starting at a place of power in the Big Ten with how this whole thing looks currently in the pecking order of that conference. So if I'm Will Stein, maybe I would actually just take the USF job if Alex Golesh goes and takes another job somewhere. Or I would take the, insert whatever G5 job, into that blank. So a Dan Mullen makes sense. He's been there, done that. Again, I still think a Jeff Monken makes some sense. A David Shaw makes some sense. Guys that are like, no, I've been around the block. I know what I'm getting into to a certain degree as a head coach. This isn't like my first big break. And then I get to UCLA and I'm like, what the heck is going on? My head's spinning. This is not necessarily what I thought it was going to be when it comes to the help I have around me, both resource-wise and talent-wise on this roster. Any last thoughts on UCLA, Cato, before we close this thing out?
Yeah, I remember before pre-show we mentioned potentially a Dave Aranda, guy from California, maybe being a guy that UCLA goes after. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting. I'll tell you one thing. Having lived in both Southern California and Waco, I love Waco. California is probably a more ideal place to live, especially with some money. It's interesting because I don't know that Dave Aranda strikes me as like the activator type. I think it'd be a fun thing for us as college football fans. I think schematically, who does he hire as his OC, and what is his role in the defense, and how does that look is, I guess, the biggest question. Because I'm looking at the defense right now at Baylor, and I'm like, man, it's not a Dave Aranda defense that I'm excited about. We're going to the Big Ten, where they're just going to be even more formidable offense. Like, that doesn't get me that excited. So I see the thought process. It doesn't really have the juice that I would maybe get excited about it from a UCLA fan when it comes to like forward-facing figure. But guy's a great football coach. There's ties to UCLA. I wouldn't hate it, but I don't know that it would be the one that like gets me up out of my seat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. He's his stoic personality we've talked about a bunch on this show. It'd be a funny contrast for him between him and the head basketball coach they have over there, Mick Cronin. Two completely different worlds, but no, I mean, his ties to California make it make sense. His pedigree and his experience make it make sense compared to what they have before. So would be an interesting one for sure. But I don't know, if you think you're a good coach and I think you're in the Big 12, you feel like any year you could do it. Like, you can make it happen. So I think that's an interesting spot in college football where kind of the Big 12 and the ACC, talking about Virginia Tech too, feel so gettable. I think if you feel like you have the coaching prowess, like, you just know any given year it could be your year and you can do it, compared to a top-heavy Big Ten where you have to crawl at the bottom of a hole. I don't know if Dave Aranda, that'd be his speed, but he's got to have his defense show out here first, I think, before we even consider him going anywhere else, because right now his side of the ball, his baby, not looking great.
It's a terrible question to ask, but what you just said made me think about this. If you take the UCLA job, what are the odds you're still the head coach in 4 years? Like, it's not really set up for you to have success overnight. That's the first part. And I would love to see you. I grew up going to games in the Rose Bowl as well, seeing Kevin Prince play quarterback for UCLA. Dude, I was there. Rick Neuheisel was the head coach. I would love to see UCLA be awesome, but the reality of it is where you are right now and the backing you haven't put towards that football, unless they just flip the switch and Wasserman comes in guns blazing and putting money into that thing and they go get top player after top player, that changes the script. But it's a tough thing to sign up for, I think, right now with where UCLA is currently in the modern landscape.
Yeah, I think that's more of a reason to roll the dice on a John Gruden, just as a science project to see how it works. Because what do you have to lose, just given the runway for success in general? But you mentioned if you activate it, same with USC. We've always talked about this. It's the NIL era, dude. Like we're in Hollywood. Like there's not money and opportunity out here for that players would be interested in. Like they got to figure it out eventually. I think they will. Both programs, quite frankly, just given their geography and the current college football landscape. But with those names you were just pulling, I mean, your excitement about UCLA wanting to be good. We might have to add you to a hot board here. Might have to hit up Pete Nakos and have JD PicKell as a potential candidate for this job. But no, we'll see, man. I'm excited to track this, and it's gonna be interesting to see just with how early this opening is, what the narrative's gonna be throughout the year. It's just such a long runway for a head coach opening that it'll be fascinating. Maybe we forget about it and we come back to it at the end of the year. Maybe it's something we follow throughout the year, but regardless, we'll see. Excited for it.
Pete Nakos and Andy Staples and the entire team at On 3. One got you covered, two making their money's worth right now, Cato, when it comes to putting in the work on the coaching carousel as well as all they do during the college football season. But apparently it's that time of year already.